There is big news today, and that is that the Pac-12 is not dead in what is a shocking reversal, and one that I think most of the sources that I speak to is 100% built on the fact that the ACC can't seem to get out of their way when it comes to ACC expansion, which is not dead. There's a lot of people out there reporting that the ACC is not going to expand. I don't think that's the case. I think that it is up in the air. I think Florida State and Clemson, along with the Carolinas, have not officially checked the box and said, yeah, we're on board with expansion. But until they have that call, and I am told now it'll be tomorrow midday that they will have that call. Until they have that call, we don't know where the ACC is on expansion truly. I still maintain, I think it's 65, 70% that they add the $72 million. That's the main thing. The issue now becomes for the Pac-12. Can you find a path forward without Stanford and Cal? Our sources today have told us that Oregon State and Washington State have been aggressive behind the scenes. And if you know Scott Barnes, the athletic director at Oregon State, he is an absolute operator. He is a lovely, lovely man to be your sports administrator. He is a guy that's not going to sit on his hands and hope. Scott Barnes at Oregon State, I am told, has been very aggressive in trying to build something with the Pac-12 brand to try and keep the Pac-12 as a P5. We'll see if that's viable. It does not seem like it would be, but certainly there is hope for the Pac-12 brand to continue. Is it likely? I don't know that I would say it's likely. There's a lot of politicking going on behind the scenes. I don't think there's any doubt Oregon State and Washington State's preference would be to do business with the Mountain West if there is a deal to be done there. Very frankly, they know that they are going to take a significant pay cut. Hell, Oregon State and Washington State will likely come in under the $8 million each that Stanford and Cal are going to get in the ACC if that happens. So you're looking at a significant pay cut for Oregon State and Washington State. The infrastructure costs of traveling all of your sports in Washington State and Oregon State have talked about the fact that they do not want to cut sports. They, I think, as I am told, would like to have the Mountain West as their dance partner. We'll see how all that works out. The AAC obviously has a great commissioner and Mike Oresco. The brands are not as prevalent. The West Coast opportunity to dominate the West Coast as the Pac-12 had is not as prevalent. Winning on the sports field, I think, would be far less of a priority under the weight of travel costs and logistics if you merge with the AAC. So there's a lot of reasons, and reasons you understand why the Mountain West and Oregon State and Washington State makes sense. But, Jake, I think the lead here is it's stunning that the Pac-12 has, again, potentially found a way to save its own life.
Yeah, and I think that this Mountain West situation has always been one that we all knew was, eventually going to get vetted. I mean, you had to do everything you could do to explore it and figure out, what exactly it looks like. And I think that, Oregon State, again, as we've always said, is a really valuable brand. I mean, I know that they're the ones that got the short end of the stick as far as the Pac-12 burning to the ground. But at the same time, I think that they're also an athletic program and an institution that understands that they can make things happen because they are valuable. The numbers say they're valuable. The facilities say they're valuable. Again, they haven't done much winning on the top end, right? I mean, they haven't been a college football playoff team, but I don't think you would expect them to be. You would be adding Oregon State as a mid-table, lower-tier sort of value in your conference. So if you're Oregon State, yeah, you don't want to be traveling across the country. You don't want to be doing anything excessive. What you want is you want to find a way to merge with the Mountain West without taking the Mountain West pay cut. That's the mission if you're Oregon State. And I understand it. Look, I get it. Dude, if you're Oregon State, like taking that type of pay cut just isn't sustainable in the long term. I mean, you have debt load from your renovation. You have things that you need to pay for.
Yes.
So the revenue needs to continue to come in. And so if anybody expected, institutions like Oregon State to just roll over, I think you're probably up in the night a little bit. But I think that it still remains the case that the Pac-12 as we knew it is not going to come back. I think, if these 4 remaining schools want to find a way to rewrap the gift, and call it the Pac-10 or the Mountain Pac or whatever the hell we want to call it, that's great. I'm fine with that. And I think that's probably the best solution for everybody involved. The only issue with that is that the College Football Playoff Committee is not going to allow you to be in A5, having an auto bid into the College Football Playoff. And that's what I think is tough. But ultimately, I don't think you have another choice because you need the revenue. So that's where the conundrum is. Hey, if we can get, let's just say Apple as an example, if we could get an Apple-style distribution deal and reform a conference and be 10, 12, 14 teams, that puts us in a strong position to continue to bring in the revenue that we need to just keep the program afloat, just be in a position where we can pay all the bills, keep the lights on, keep things going until we can find a better solution, which is the solution that I've been advocating for. Hey, work with the Mountain West, buy yourself 3 years, survive, and then see what happens in 3 years with realignment, because we're not done realigning. We're not done expanding. It's just you need some time to pass because season's here. So we need to get to Q1, and then all of a sudden the conversation could start again.
Yeah, and I also think one of the other significant stories today was this College Football Playoff Committee meeting that happened, and our sources tell us that the College Football Playoff Committee had discussions about a rebuilt, renewed Pac-12 keeping its P5 status. Now, they had discussions about that. Does that mean that that's going to happen? It certainly does not. But the idea here is, I think, to vet out the process, understand where the committee is at. I'm sure that that feedback is being shared or already shared, but it tells you the lengths that Stanford, Cal, Oregon State, and Washington State have gone to explore all of their options. Because, again, as much as I understand that fans of, today it was interesting on our YouTube comment section, UTSA fans were everywhere talking about Houston being distracted and that the AAC is a far better conference than the Mountain West. And all of that may be true, but you cannot fault Oregon State and Washington State and Stanford and Cal for at least exploring what is best for their long-term benefit. And I think that's exactly what's happening here. I don't think there's any doubt that the College Football Playoff Committee is going to frown on a renewed or rebuilt Pac-12 keeping P5 status, especially if it merges with the AAC or the Mountain West. I think that, which obviously is the only way to make that happen, I think they don't get an auto bid. Are they viewed as a G5? I don't know that they would fall that far, but they certainly would not have an automatic qualifier in their conference champion, and I think that is significant. The other thing that I think is really significant here is perception versus reality. The perception of the College Football Playoff Executive Committee is a big one. That is something that's very important because they set the policy along with the athletic director board, and, obviously they are the biggest voice in the room, but who makes up a significant part of that group? Well, G5 presidents make up a significant part of that group. So I think there is room to lobby and argue for the Pac-12 remaining as an entity. But I don't believe, and neither do the sources that I speak to believe, that the Pac-12 is going to be able to keep an AQ or a P5 status. And I think that's a big deal because without that, I just don't know how relevant you are as far as big TV paydays go. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, if you don't have significant TV paydays, what's the point of rebuilding the Pac-12?
Well, I think that, it's definitely a situation where you have to get creative. I mean, I think
would agree.
There's no doubt that, these 4 schools that were, that are the remnants of the Pac-12, I mean, they have to be very open-minded and creative with how they go about this, because I still maintain, just as I did before the conference melted down, that you had a good opportunity here to kind of change the narrative in how TV distribution in college athletics worked. And did the Apple deal that we were all told was going to go down, was that a great deal? No, it wasn't a great deal financially. I mean, obviously, it required you to sell, and that was always going to be a problem for that makeup of institutions. But I think moving forward, you can't go, like Oregon State can't go from 20 million something to 4. That doesn't work. And so I think that for schools like Oregon State, like you do need to get creative and accept the fact that, yeah, you're not going to get some huge deal from ESPN. You got to go the Apple route. You got to find something new because you're not going to have the relevance of the college football playoff.
But I think one of the conversations that is being had, or at least I'm told is being had, is the idea of the Mountain West having a much shorter television obligation, a grant of rights that is less than 4 years for the likes of Oregon State and Washington State, Stanford and Cal, because you have to understand this window that we're dealing with in realignment and contraction and expansion. It's a landscape that's vastly changing. So you look at the success that the Big 12 had, it was in their aggression that they had success in adding the 4 corner schools. Without a doubt, it was in their aggression, not being scared of public perceptions across old world college football, if you will, by adding BYU, Houston, UCF, and Cincinnati. You added 8 really strong brands to your conference to offset the loss of Oklahoma and Texas. I also think that there is a discussion around the idea that if you are the Mountain West or you are Oregon State and Washington State, you have to get aggressive and make this happen now.
Yes.
There is a small window here to make a move, and I also think this ACC expansion conversation has shown you there are funds to be had if you have something of value. And I think if you are the Mountain West, adding Oregon State and Washington State certainly is a rising tide that will raise all ships. But if you can add Stanford and Cal, because let's not forget, Stanford and Cal are still in limbo. But if you can add those 4 remaining schools, even if it is at a lower number, and let's say it's 10 million or less on a grant of rights with CBS and Fox, and hell, maybe ESPN gets involved in that at some point. I know that Stanford and Cal have been in touch with ESPN. I've been told that directly. So ESPN is having conversations in the group at least. There has to be a path forward. I still maintain the biggest news we've gotten in the last month since the 4 corner schools went to the Big 12, the biggest news we got there was that ESPN lobbied the Big 12 and took their temperature on further expanding for Stanford and Cal. That is a huge story. And why does that matter? And why is it relevant in the grand scheme of things right now in this conversation? Because it shows you that ESPN has an appetite to take care of and make sure that Stanford and Cal remain in a P5 situation.
Facts.
And they're willing to put money into that deal. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think that there is that same appetite at CBS and Fox. I know CBS does not want to in any way, shape, or form lose the majority of the Mountain West TV deal. I know that that is a fact. But the bigger question is, what does the AAC bring to the table? And I think the issue for the 4 remaining schools out west is not a whole lot. There is too much expense and too much ground to cover to routinely and regularly play in that conference footprint versus going with what you know, which is the Mountain West footprint, less travel cost, less rigor on your athletes, less drag on their academics. And I can tell you at Oregon State and Washington State, and it's unwritten rules at Cal and Stanford, academics come before sports. And if we learned anything this year about Washington State, it certainly was that faculty doesn't give a damn about athletics. They are far more focused on making sure that their students graduate and go on to live lives that are viable and really get them into educations that help them thrive. Whether they compete on the field or not, it doesn't matter. I think the faculty and staff at Washington State sent a clear message with their threat of a sit-in that they care more about academics than they do about athletics. That matters. And if you look at the travel cost and logistics, the infrastructure that would have to be added to facilitate consistent weekly travel to the East Coast of the United States, it doesn't make a lot of sense in the AAC. It just does not. And I know, again, UTSA fans, I've heard from Oregon State fans who swear up and down, all 3 of you, that, oh my God, the AAC. You can want that to happen. That doesn't make it so.
Mm-hmm.
We have been told repeatedly that if the remaining 4 teams are going to take a haircut, so Oregon State, Washington State, Stanford, and Cal, if they are going to take a haircut financially, and especially if that is below the $10 million threshold, travel costs and infrastructure costs absolutely matter in the conversation. If they have to hire more academic infrastructure, that's just more money out of the pockets.
Yeah, and they don't have the opportunity to make that money back.
I totally agree with that.
If you're not going to get, again, and this is why I say the college football playoff matters, because again,
yes, it does.
Those extra bonuses cover a lot of different things. I mean, again, you're literally talking about just an influx of cash into your institution because your football team had success. And I think, again, whether it's travel or otherwise, I mean, there are a number of different costs, whether it's the Mountain West or the ACC, obviously more if it's the ACC or the AAC. Right? That's why you can't go out east, because, again, you're not – like if the Big Ten was the Pacific Time Zone Conference, they could go out east. They have the money. They're good. They have college football playoff access. We're having a completely different conversation.
Your average endowments at places like USC and UCLA, Stanford and Cal are completely different than Oregon State, Washington State, Boise State, Nevada. You're in a different ball game here. And I think that's the thing that people don't understand is you can't just take what you hope happens and make it a reality. You have to think about the human beings that are involved in these processes. These are kids who are trying to go to school and live their best academic and athletic life at the same time.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, being an athlete at Stanford, and I've known dozens, it's one of the most difficult jobs in the country. To play football or basketball and really any sport at Stanford and keep your grades at a point where, because Stanford has several tiers of support for those that are not at a certain grade level. If you are not achieving at a minimum grade level, you have extra tutoring, extra study sessions, you have to spend extra time in online learning environments. It's not an easy gig.
Yeah.
So the idea that you're going to try and do that from New Orleans with Tulane, UTSA in San Antonio, so that you can go on your lacrosse trip is kind of crazy. that you're not going to do that. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
And that's why I say, I just think that the savvy financial play has always been to merge with the Mountain West in whatever capacity that works out to be. And then from there, you have to reevaluate the landscape, right? Like, it shouldn't be a thing where if you merge with the Mountain West, you're like, oh my God, we have a new home. Yeah, sure, you have a new home, but it's an apartment that you're going to live in for 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
We need to get on to what actually is the permanent 10-year, 12-year, 15-year home of Stanford and the rest of these universities. And I just think that, the other thing no one ever talks about, this is unhealthy for college athletics. Like, you can't have Stanford being in a position where they went from being a P5 to now being in the Mountain West and not really being relevant. Because, again, what's San Diego State fan going to say? What's Boise State fan going to say if Oregon State jumps into the Mountain West? Well, dude, we're just as good as Oregon State. Why are we not a P5, right, when Oregon State tries to join a new conference after the Mountain West? That's what's going to happen. So that's why I say, if you're the Mountain West school right now, the San Diego States, the Boise States, whoever you want to point to, you want this to happen because now you have leverage. Now you can say, hey, they jumped into our conference. Does that not mean that we're kind of in that same conversation? If you have facilities, if you've done some winning, like that's where this conversation's headed. Yeah. So I don't know if we repackage it around the PAC or if it's just them joining the Mountain West, but that's really the only option that works out because you're not going to absorb flying across the country. That's just not going to work.
Well, and what you're also not going to have is consistent access to things like the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
You're not going to have the benefit of the doubt. Oh, well, they were in the Pac-12. Well, the Pac-12 is a G5, right? Like this 6+6 or 5+7 model that's going on around the college football playoff. You guys, this is not a small conversation. I implore you to really consider what is at stake here. Are we talking about giving the top 12 teams in the country access to the college football playoff? No, we're not. We are talking about the top 4 at this point, conference champions, all of the P4s, they're in, right? Well, now you have 8 more spots. Who does that go to? Well, I think right now what the G5 is fighting for is, hey, the highest ranked G5 conference champion gets in. Period. End of story. Okay, I'm down with that. Well, now you're down to 7 spots. Is that just the next 7 highest ranked teams in the country? That's what the G5 is trying to get away from.
Yeah.
The G5 wants an at-large bid, and they want an automatic qualifier. And I don't know that the P4, the remaining 4 conferences, are going to want to give that up.
Well, yeah. I mean, the question is why? What have you done to deserve that? What have you done? And again, I'm not saying I'm on the side of the power conferences here, but if you're them, that's your angle. Hey, what have you done to be saying that you deserve an auto bid and an at-large bid? Like, that's not how this works. I mean, again, I have to agree. Like, certainly the G5, the G5s are going to get one auto bid. I have to think that.
The highest ranked conference champion in the G5 will get in.
And so
I'd have no doubt about that.
Yeah, and so if you have that, then I think it should just be, hey, the best of the rest. I just is what it is.
I think if you are the G5, this is where that, okay, well then play 9 conference games comes in.
Totally agree.
Play 10 conference games.
Level the field, dude. Level the field, bro.
If you're only going to give us 1, we need to knock you motherfucking down a couple pegs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Alabama and Georgia need to play every year. Ohio State needs to make sure that they play SC and Oregon and Michigan every year.
That's a requirement.
Right? That's what this game is about. That's the game we're playing now. The G5 wants the ability to hurt the P4 as much as possible. If you're not going to give us our top-ranked, conference champion and an at-large bid, you guys need to play 9 or 10 conference games.
Yep.
That's the argument here, because it's just like this year in the Pac-12. You are going to see the Pac-12 is going to eat itself. You're going to see how loyal a hungry dog really is in the Pac-12, because they will eat each other.
Yeah.
Next year in the Big Ten, they will eat each other. This year in the Big 12, maybe a little bit. Next year in the Big 12, they will eat each other.
Yeah.
But the SEC doesn't have to, because they don't force you to infight.
Yeah.
You look at Georgia's schedule this year, just hand them a college football semifinal spot. It'd be a shocking loss if they were not in.
Yeah.
If they lose a game this year, I would be really stunned.
Yep.
I would be.
Yeah, and I think it's a huge problem for the college football playoff model. I mean, just generally speaking. I mean, again, I am always for parity. I'm always for level playing field. I'm always for that. But I think at the same time, because it goes both ways, right? Like, this year in Major League Baseball, the Yankees are our last place team. I think that's really good for Major League Baseball for one season. Every other season, the Yankees need to be the best team in baseball, right? But for one season, I don't want Georgia in the college football playoff. I want them to lose on a last-second field goal, and we all get to cry a river over Kirby and super speeders not being in the playoff anymore.
Totally agree.
Like, that's good for 1 year, but the problem is the current model does not permit that. They basically they already get the auto bid because they're winning the SEC with an easy-ass schedule, and then Alabama's got to find a way. And that's what I have an issue with. I mean, look, it has to be G5s or not included. Like, it has to be level. You can't have Ohio State playing one quality opponent. That doesn't work. And I don't know why we allow it.
Totally agree. All right. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. Please hit subscribe if you are not. Let's give away a $25 gift card to one of the members of our exclusive Instagram group. Why not? I'm just going to open up this list. Here's the Instagram group right here. And I'm just going to throw down, and I am going to stop on Greg Hawkins. Greg Hawkins, a Utah fan.
Wow.
Greg, you just won a $25 gift card to Amazon. Why? Because you support the show. You're in our Instagram members only group. You're active in the chat. We appreciate you very much. Greg Hawkins, congratulations. DM Jake, who's also going to put it in the members only group, that because Greg Hawkins is a member, he just won a $25 gift card to Amazon. You too can do that. Maybe I'm bribing you. Consider hitting the join button. For $9.99 a month, you can join the show. That gets you into our members-only Instagram chat, which is fantastic. We play prize picks in there every day, which we'll get to in an hour. But the other thing that we do is we just chit-chat. We talk all the time about sports, whether it's the NBA, NFL, college football, you name it. It's a great group of dudes. For $1.99, $2 a month, all of your comments get highlighted right here on the show. But yeah, we always take care of our members first.
And by the way, if you're not a member, please hit the subscribe button. We're chopping down 30,000, 1,200 subs to go.
Yeah, can you guys believe that we are at 28,871 subscribers?
Let's go.
Let's go.
Come on.
1,129 subscribers from 30,000.
Let's go.
Ridiculous. Giggity says, let's go, Greg. James Knight says, random selection. Not. Absolutely it was. Absolutely it was. Because the best thing about, and I don't know why I'm going to explain this to you. The best thing about Instagram, you guys, I can just flick the page. Do you guys see that rolling? I can just flick the page and hit one, and it'll be, like, I'll do it again so you guys can see it. Let's see, right there. James Perrine. James Perrine. I don't know who that is.
Who the fuck is that guy?
I haven't heard from James lately. Or look at that, Jeremy Bolton, who I golfed with on Saturday. Like, it's not hard to randomly pick a member in our group. We do it all the time. All right, let's get your comments in here on the Monty Show, but not before we take our daily buckshot right here. Bucked Up, the official energy provider of the Monty Show. BuckedUp.com. Use the promo code Monty20 to get 20% off your purchase of $20 or more. Or no, just 20% off your purchase.
Yeah. Let's go, baby.
Yeah, Papa Murphy's Pizza.
Yeah.
I get the two. I run the two together. BuckedUp.com. Monty20 to get 20% off at checkout. There you go. It's a buckshot, guys. Super easy. 200 milligrams caffeine, but it gives you a mental lift. I love it. We always power through the show with it. Same way you can power through your job, whether it is a pivot table, a meeting. Maybe you just need a little more patience. Maybe the kids are having a crazy wild hair day today. That's okay. Chill out. Maybe you're in Florida and you're at home because of the hurricane and you just need a little patience. Give yourself a buckshot. That way you'll have a little more mental clarity.
It's all
Everybody
good.
calming down. Anybody notice I have on a red shirt today?
Yeah, dude, come on, bro. You're breaking a streak here, bro.
BuckedUp.com, the official energy provider of the Monty Show. In the description below, you can get a free sampler pack of their Buck Bars. Hook it up right now. Let's see, who's in today? Cleveland Rocks. First comment today, $5. Ready for another great show, gentlemen. Thank you.
Let's go.
RB, $2. Utes game plan for tomorrow with the news.
Oh, my God, bro.
Yeah, this is brutal.
Disappointing.
Utah quarterback Cam Rising and tight end Brant Keithy are out for tomorrow, according to Pete Thamel at ESPN. I think they run the ball a lot. I think Jaquindon Jackson now becomes a central figure. Bryson Barnes will start at quarterback. They're not going to change much. They are going to rely on that offensive line in the running game, and they're going to lean heavily on that defense, and they are going to try and score one more point than Florida.
Yeah.
I think that's the bottom line. I don't know that the game plan changes that much, if we're being honest.
Well, and I think let's be really honest here for all the Utah fans out there. I don't think this needs to be a full-on, rainy day here. I mean, let's be honest. Florida's trying to replace Anthony Richardson. There's big questions about Florida's ability to win games on the road. Like, it's not as though Florida's coming in here and they're just some juggernaut. I mean, I agree that Florida's a quality program, and certainly, you would like to beat Florida after last year's misstep, if we want to be nice.
Yeah, but Graham Mertz is a really average quarterback. This is, I mean, the guy completes 59% of his passes over his career. Like, this is not somebody that this Utah defense is going to fear at all.
Yeah, this feels like one of those games where Kyle Whittingham has told his defense, get turnovers. Like, if you can if the defense gets 2 turnovers in this game, dude, the Utes have a great chance to win the game. And
you have to force Florida to throw the ball.
Yeah.
Stop the run. If you're the Utah Utes defense, you're going to force force Mertz to beat you. There's just no doubt about that. That's how you handle business if you're the Utah defense. So I don't think it changes much at all, honestly. Lance Johnson gives us $2. Justin Steele just saying, boom, 2 days in a row. Who's your boy? Who's your boy on the Prize Picks? 2 days in a row undefeated. This guy right here.
The dynasty is not over.
No, it's not. Prize Picks coming up in an hour. Telling you, you gotta get the link below in the description. Use the promo code Monty to get 100% deposit matching up to $100.
By the way, if you were in our member group, you'd already have our Prize Picks. Just saying.
Yeah, you would.
Just saying. Could have locked in before the game started.
Prize Picks, daily fantasy. All you have to do is choose more or less. I have been red hot this week. Lance and I are riding the Justin Steele train. Go Cubs. Cubs win today. Yeah. Who gave you Cody Bellinger? That's what I'm saying. JC, Fresno State / Univision in business for one game, all exclusive on Spanish-only linear TV. Potential new future long-term source. Tier 3 is non-existent anymore. Tier 3 does not exist in college football. Univision is a very situational setup. In Fresno, in California, where the Latino Spanish-speaking population is significant, absolutely that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does that make sense for Boise?
No.
No, it does not. Does that make sense for a lot like Utah State? No, it does not. It's situational. With all due respect, JC, Fresno State makes a heck of a lot of sense to be in business with Univision.
Yeah, dude. It's all about demographic.
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah.
Kyle A., a new member of the show.
Oh,
Kyle A.
Kyle.
Let's go, Kyle A. Appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for joining the membership.